Thank you so much, Mr. President. Excellency, President of the Conference, Vice President, Ministers, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, this session of the governing bodies this session stems from the governing body's March decision recommending that the appendix to the Director General's report on the situation of workers of the occupied Arab territories be discussed at this 112th session of the ILC. So today we gather to confront the pressing issues faced by these workers, seeking for actionable solutions to enhance their conditions and uphold the principles of justice, the principles of equity and justice for all. Your insights and contributions are essential as we work toward these goals. In the wake of the horrific Hamas-led atrocities against Israel and the ensuing relentless war waged by Israel, the labor market in Gaza has literally collapsed. Today, Gaza is in ruins. Livelihoods are shattered and work is scarce. Labor rights have been decimated. There is a growing hardship for workers and employers. Businesses are closing and hundreds of thousands of jobs have been lost. My report to this conference paints a quite distressing picture. I must confess that this has been the hardest year for Palestinian workers since 1967. Never before has the situation been this bleak. Let me recall, in the context of the ILC resolution underlying my annual report, that resolution was adopted in 1980 by the 66th International Labour Conference. The resolution expressed deep concern about the intensification of Israeli settlement policy. It emphasized the economic and social consequences of the settlements and the detrimental effects on labor rights and employment of workers of the occupied Arab territories. At the time, 44 years ago, there were about 100,000 Israeli settlers scattered around the occupied territories. Today, the West Bank is host to an estimated 700,000 settlers. As my report underlines, the situation in Gaza is particularly catastrophic. The loss of Palestinian civilian life is on a scale never seen before in the occupied Palestinian territory. Entire families have been wiped out. children have been traumatized and injured for life. People have been denied access to the basics of human survival. Most workers and employers have been displaced, often multiple times. Most are now homeless. Most workplaces are destroyed. The labor market, already stifled by 17 years of blockade, has largely been replaced by survival activities. ILO estimates that more than 200,000 jobs have been lost in Gaza since October last year, representing more than 2/3 of total employment prior to October 7, 2023. Labor income losses in Gaza amounts to more than $3 million a day. The misery in Gaza has cast a long shadow over the West Bank, which has experienced significant knock-on effects. Access to the Israeli labor market is closed to most Palestinians, while increased settler violence and movement restrictions suffocate economic activity. The West Bank economy, including East Jerusalem, is now in deep crisis. GDP is declining rapidly. Many enterprises have reduced working hours and dismissed workers. The unemployment rate has more than doubled from 12.9% in the third quarter of 2023 to 27% by the end of 2023. Labor force participation declined considerably as many job seekers became discouraged and left the labor market altogether. Work in Israel used to be a lifeline for many Palestinians. Yet, daily access to Israel via the checkpoint and crossing was fraught with long and arduous commutes. Since October last year, only a very limited few have access to Israel. As described in previous reports to the conference, the number of Palestinian workers employed in Israel and the settlement has steadily increased over the years. However, working conditions for Palestinian workers in Israel remain of concern. The work permit regime and the associated brokers' practice need to be reformed. Meanwhile, in the occupied Syrian Golan, also in sight and hearing of hostilities in the last month, there is a continuing sense of unequal treatment as the traditional ways of life and work are threatened by increasing numbers of Israeli settlers. The labor market of the Syrian citizens of the occupied Golan is in rapid transition toward non-agricultural activities. Excellencies, in these dark times, there have been strong calls on the ILO to step up to the many challenges on the ground. It is clear that there is an important and highly valued role for the ILO for ILO's expertise and the right-based approach. This year, my report includes recommendations in its final chapter. Among other things, I emphasize the need to plan for a job-rich and right-driven early recovery while the humanitarian response is still unfolding. Job creation and decent work need to be put at the center of the rebuilding of infrastructure and services. In parallel, social protection initiatives will need to quickly be expanded. Social dialogue will be vital in planning and implementing measures for recovery and resilience. Labor rights must be upheld. Of course, none of this will be possible, quite frankly, without an end to the current war and the release of all hostages. Excellencies, as you know, the ILO has already worked with workers and employers' organizations to provide emergency relief and continues to review and report on the labor market situation. I wish to reiterate that we stand ready to work with all parties in a tripartite manner to pave the way and contributing towards a solid recovery. Our emergency recovery program for the occupied Palestinian territory provides a phased and multi-layered framework based on Recommendation 205. It requires more external financial support. Finally, I strongly believe that there is a way, even in the short term, there is a way for Palestinian daily workers in Israel to resume their work. The conclusion of a prompt agreement authorizing such action could be, in my humble opinion, a major step forward. Social justice is the way out of the interlinked crisis affecting the occupied Arab territories. It is a call for action to all of us, individually and collectively. Thank you, Chair.